Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. Today we're going to do something interesting. We're going to teach you, or more like inform you about techniques and tips we can give you on how to get that book read. All of us always endeavor to read books. Anand always encourages all of us to read books. And all of us, in the enthusiasm, go out and buy a book. And we're like, okay, we're going to get down to reading this. Then somehow, the first few pages, we just don't get past it. Then we just don't get down to picking it up again. And then finally, that book disappears from our view. So we want to avoid that. We thought we'll tell you on how you can encourage yourself and motivate yourself into reading and ways you can get into reading a book from beginning to end, and possibly even get into reading 100 books a year. It's possible. There are people who do this. It's not as crazy as you think it is. There are 52 weeks in a year. Reading a couple of books a week, you'll be there in no time.
So, first I wanted to start off by asking you how many books you've tackled this year and how many more books do you plan to tackle?
That's a good question. This year.
Just a rough count.
Yeah, I'm counting mentally.
Yeah.
I'm not as agile as you are, I get there though. I probably must have read around 11 to 12 books this year.
Okay, that's good. You're about halfway through the year now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope to bring it up to...
And these are like massive books because I've seen the...
Yeah, some of them are. I do agree. Some of them would probably be considered like Bibles.
Yeah.
It would be like, why are you reading such a book? A lot of my friends ask me, even my son and daughter ask me, Dada, are you crazy walking around with that? Yeah, it's true. But reading is something, it's a learned skill. So, you know how it is.
Yeah. So, I asked that question because it has to do more with the idea that people have an obsession with the number of books they read per year. But just 11 books, which is at the outside doesn't seem much, but then that doesn't tell you the entire story. Yes, numbers do matter, but let's first break down how to read a book, and then we'll get back to this numbers game which we're talking about. So, the first tip to reading a book is buying that book.
Yes.
So, you can pirate that PDF and you can definitely pirate that EPUB, but that doesn't come close to the financial investment you make in buying. And a lot of people say don't judge a book by its cover. I'd say flip that on its head. Buy a book whose cover interests you and a cover which gets you to want to pick it up when you see it, because reading is as much you have a monkey brain, and you need to make it more pleasurable for you to pick up that book. And if you dump a lot of money into buying a book, you'll definitely want to get the value out of that book. And that's happened with me a lot of the time, and I'm sure it's happened to you as well.
It's true.
So the first strategy is to buy that book. Don't pirate it. Don't read the EPUB. Don't say I'll read it and then if I like it, I'll buy it. Buy the book. If you don't like it, you can always throw it away, or you can give it to someone else. I'm sure
You can exchange it.
yeah, you can
return it.
And you can return it. And not all books are for everyone. Number 2, audiobooks. These are the saving. This is the saving. So a lot of you asked me how I got over my problem of reading. And I had a huge problem of reading. I couldn't read more than 2 pages at a time because I just found it extremely boring. One, it had to do with the subject matter I was reading. And number 2, reading is something which can be tough for people who haven't done it before. So audiobooks helps, and something like Audible or even YouTube free audiobooks are available for some of the older books, where you can keep it listening and you can flip through the pages and read along with them. So what this does is it actively gets you to read it at the pace at which the audiobook is reading it.
And most of the time it's slower than the actual.
And it's slower, and you'll find yourself skipping a few lines because you're already ahead of the person who's reading it in the audiobook, and you feel better about yourself. But it also helps your brain. It's like a crutch. And until you don't need your training wheels, and the day will come when you don't want your training wheels, and you can give it away and you can read the book without an audiobook playing in the background.
True.
So some of you might think of this as redundant, but I definitely say do that, and it really does help. And that's how I got started reading. And number 3, it's good to have a schedule.
Always.
So, because I know he has a schedule for how he does it. So I wanted to first quiz him on that.
Well, I have a very fixed regime because I have a mind which wanders a lot. To prevent my mind from wandering, I have a fixed habit forming regime which I have. So every day I have a certain tasks which I do, and one of them is reading. I sit and definitely I try to spend at least 45 minutes to an hour reading. It may not be the book which I picked to read. It might be anything else. But the point is, those 45 minutes to an hour, I read. Not the newspaper, that I pick up some literature of some sort and I read.
Yeah.
So most of the time nowadays, I do manage to pick up the book which I wanted to read. And I read multiple books at a time. A lot of you think that's very strange. How can you be reading 2-3 books at a time? It's like how you go to college and school, you'll be studying 2-3 subjects at a time. And you have 2-3 different textbooks. So you study each textbook. So same way I rotate. So I might read a chapter in this book, then I might move to another book. Or today I might feel like reading a little bit of fiction. So that way I'm not stuck. Otherwise, what happens, a lot of people, they pick up a book, they say, okay, I'm going to read this book. They start reading it, and the story doesn't really go, with their current frame of mind. Then they're like trying to finish the book. You cannot try and finish a book. Either you read it pleasurefully, or you won't read it. If you're not reading it pleasurefully, you're just going through the motions of acting to read. That means you'll be scanning the lines, going through the pages, not really retaining anything. Just like, okay, I did it.
Yeah.
Please don't do that, because you'll hate reading them. So if you don't find a book pleasureful or not in the mood for that literature, read something else. Pick up some other book.
Yeah. And something which there's a common notion amongst a lot of older people, which is that reading storybooks or fiction they consider storybooks. So reading fiction is a waste of time, and that you should only read non-fiction. That you should immediately jump into a book like Wealth of Nations and basically choke yourself with those words. And that's the belief amongst a lot of older people and part of the generation which is above mine, and maybe the one above mine as well. So that I'd say is a flawed mentality, because
True.
the act of reading is like it's a muscle. You're exercising your brain, like how you run, or how I run a lot and I skip a lot, and he runs and he skips, and we both know for a fact that walking is the first step to skipping, and walking is the first step to running. And walking is so important, because walking is something which you can do with someone. Walking is something which you can talk about with everyone. Walking isn't something which is a niche thing like running, or a niche thing like skipping.
True.
And that's the same thing with fiction. Everyone reads fiction. Most people read fiction. People like a good story. And when you read fiction, you're already first engrossed in it. Number two, you're exercising your brain, you're priming it up for reading, you're taking those words in, you're learning new words, and you get to talk about the story. Even with someone who hasn't read the book, you can talk to them about it. I don't think you can talk about Wealth of Nations to someone who hasn't read Wealth of Nations. And I don't think you can talk about the history of, a short history of financial euphoria by Kenneth Galbraith with just anyone, because that's very niche. And you want to be able to build that habit very slowly in a way which is enjoyable, and fiction is a great way to exercise that muscle. You don't start off running by running a marathon, you start off running by walking of 1K. That's where it begins, and that's what fiction is. Fiction is a great place to start and a great place to be. And another thing is that if you're a marathon runner, you don't run marathons every day. You run a marathon every year, like twice every year maybe, because the strain is too much on your legs. And that's very true with reading. You don't want to get burnt out, and you don't want to get to a stage where you hate reading and you don't want to touch a book ever again. That's a mistake I made. I'm sure he made that mistake in the past too.
I used to be like what Shashwat said, from a generation which used to believe fiction is a waste of time. I used to say that, I advocated that I only read non-fiction. I don't read fiction at all. And I used to say fiction, I don't know why even it's there. Then my sister sat on my head, and we used to do something like we pick a book and we read it together, which is another great way of getting into the habit of reading, which Shashwat I'm sure will talk about. But when I did that with my sister, I started reading a lot of fiction. Then what I realized with fiction is, which non-fiction does not offer you, is fiction offers your mind to ignite itself. Your imagination wakes up. You start visualizing. You start imagining different things. You see possibilities. You see storylines which you never thought of. You see human experiences which you never dreamt of. And it makes a huge impact on your life, on your worldview, the way you see things. Your empathy goes through the roof, because you're able to understand the story in nuances from another person's point of view. You might hate someone, but then when you read a story from their point of view, suddenly it makes sense why they think like that. You may not agree with them. You might still feel their opinions are not correct, but you'll be able to understand why they have those opinions, why they feel the way they do. So, and especially when you read literature from certain history periods, certain genres, you understand how chauvinism came about, why it was such a huge part of our culture. Religion, if you read why religion, the way it evolved in history, it's really fascinating. And how chance encounters in history has made such an impact in our world today. So all this comes from the world of fiction, because not every single piece of history is written or recorded. Some of it has to be imagined. We have pieces and fragments of our history. Then you have a beautiful author who comes along and stitches a story, weaves a magical story out of it. The point of it is it true or not is not the question there. The point is, it is possible. Yes, it's possible it happened. But it's a human, your mind opens up as a human being. You're like, okay, this is part of my story. It's part of our history. The world is not as we thought it was. It could be different. All this comes through fiction, which non-fiction cannot give you. Reading a book on economy is very great, very fine and dandy, makes you a great investor. But if you want to be a better human being, read a lot more fiction.
And fiction is extremely important because, yes, it may not be truthful. And that point of fiction is that it's not truthful, where your mind can escape and grasp lessons much more clearly than if someone was teaching you as a professor would, or as a teacher would, or as a mentor would. And the place where I actually learned about saving was from Charles Dickens' piece of work, rather than any other non-fiction piece of work. And this was the quote. And the quote was by Mr. Micawber in David Copperfield. And he says, annual income £20, annual expenditure £19, 19 shillings and 6 pence, result happiness. So what that means is, if your income is 20 rupees and you're spending 19 rupees 75 paisa, result happiness. Annual income £20, annual expenditure £20 ought and 6. What he's saying is, if your annual income is 20 rupees and you're spending 20 rupees and 75 paisa, result misery. And he says this from a prison setting. And it's one of the most powerful lessons in savings and finance. And it tells you how to live within your means and how to lead a happy life. And this is something you get from fiction. And this is something you can get at whatever stage of life you are in. And I'd say the best way to read 100 books in a year is to first stop underestimating fiction and start widening the scope of reading. And as Charlie Munger said, you want to read extremely widely. And as Warren Buffett says, you also want to read extremely deeply. So you read widely, pick something you like, and then go into the depth.
Correct. So as much as we love recommending finance books to you guys, and you guys asking us about investing books, finance books, we do encourage you to expand your library, expand your mind, and do dive into literature far and beyond and see what happens. Read together, share together, and in the comments down below, put some books you're reading which are not related to finance or investing. Maybe you guys can exchange some ideas there. And if we find something interesting, maybe me and Shashwat will pick it up and read it and talk about it further on this channel.
Yeah, and the quickest way for you to let us know that you want us to keep making videos like this is to leave a lot of comments, give us likes, subscribe, share it with your friends. So this is the way we know very quickly that a video is done well and this is something you want to see more.
Correct. And we do read all your comments. We are working on the discounted cash flow video. We're working on it. So we will come back to you with that. Anyway, thank you for watching Be Rich today. I hope you found this video informative and entertaining. If you did, do subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification, so you'll be notified every time we come up with a new video. If it's something you think your friends and your family would like, please do share our content with them. Once again, thank you for being with us on Be Rich.
Thank you.
I'm in Tokyo on work on the 5th of August 2023. I have a lot of following in Japan, Tokyo. Those who want to meet me in Tokyo on 5th August, kindly drop me an email on the address given below or contact us on WhatsApp there. My team would get in touch with you and facilitate the meeting. Once again, I thank you for your support for Be Rich. It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.